What's a story, amigos? This is Kino with some cool stories for today's story time.
To get things going, Ali Mills will read about a family with a special way to celebrate Christmas. And a story about a crazy bird.
You silly bird, Maybelle said. You'd be a lot better off if you'd let go of this load. Leave it behind, Tinkle said. Absolutely not.
Today's last story is read by Vicki Uditz and is about a little girl who goes to a brand new classroom.
And now, the time is right. The books are hot. We'll hear fine stories and enjoy them a lot.
Storytime is a production of KCET and is made possible by a gift from Helen and Peter Bing, so that families everywhere can share the joy of reading with their children. And now, join Kino and his friend Mara at her place for story time.
Well, it is great to see you today, Kino. Are you ready to enjoy our story time?
Yeah.
Look, some of our friends are already in the story circle. And look, some are even watching from home.
Ooh, good.
Well, guess what? I have a big surprise for you.
Yeah?
I have invited one of my very special friends to come and read for us. She is an excellent reader.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, where is she?
Well, she's in the story circle. She's right there.
Hi, Kino.
Her name is Ali.
Oh, hi, Allie.
Hi.
Can you please read to us now?
I can. I brought a book with me. Is it okay if I read this book?
What do you think?
Yeah, sure.
Oh,
sure.
goody.
It's fine.
It's a story about Christmas. Is that okay?
Yep. Any story, anytime, as long as it's a good story.
So it's story time. And the story that I'm going to read you is a Christmas story about a little boy and the beautiful way that he and his family celebrate Christmas. Now, once when I was little, I was about Taylor's age. He's my friend, and I was spending Christmas on an island that was very hot, and it didn't have any Christmas trees or snow or anything, and I thought, well, Santa isn't going to come here. But then we found a little palm tree on the beach, and we covered it with all these different bows, and we tied shirts on it and everything, and we woke up in the morning, and Santa had come. So, this is a story about his Christmas, and it's called Night Tree by Eve Bunting, and it's illustrated by Ted Rand. So see the family getting in the truck?
Yeah.
All right, here we go, Night Tree. On the night before Christmas, we always go to find our tree. We bundle up so we're warm, and Nina is already wearing her boots that are too big for her. She's been wearing them all day. Dad sets our box in the truck with the rest of his stuff, and the four of us squish into the front seat. See them all squished into the seat? We drive through the bright Christmas streets to where the dark and quiet begin. Nina is almost asleep in Mom's lap when we stop. Are we there, I ask? And Dad says, yes. And he rolls down the windows so we can smell that tree smell. And then we all scramble out. There are oaks growing, and alder and maples that are bare now and white in the moonshine. The pines and the spruces and the firs are green. This is called Luke's Forest. But Dad says it's not really a forest. It's just a nice, forgotten place where the town ends. Dad goes first on the path between the trees, carrying our box and the big red lantern. Mom and Nina go next, holding hands, and then I come last with the blanket. It hasn't snowed yet, but it's so cold that my breath hurts. The sky is spattered with stars, and the moon, big as a basketball, slides in and out between the treetops. Dad's lantern sweeps ahead. Look, he whispers. We stop. A deer is watching us. We see the brightness of its eyes, then it turns and it's gone. See the deer? Pretty, huh? Here's our tree, Dad says. It's been our tree forever and ever. We walk around it, We touch it. It's grown since last year, I say. Mom puts her hand on my shoulder and she says, so have you. So have I, Nina says. Nina hates to be left out. An owl hoots deep in the darkness. There are secrets all around us. Can I put the popcorn on the chain? Nina says. She hops up and down and she hops right out of one of her boots. Mom helps her put it back on. Nina takes one end of the chain and I take the other and we wind it around the tree. We brought apples and tangerines with strings on them and we hang them from the branches. It's hard to hang string loops when you have gloves on, but my hands are too cold to take them off. For weeks, we've been making balls of sunflower seeds and pressed millet and flowers and honey. We hang those too. We scatter shelled nuts and breadcrumbs and pieces of apple underneath for the little creatures, because they can't climb very well. Mom says I should spread the blanket so we can sit and admire our tree. She's brought a thermos of hot chocolate. I take off my gloves and toast my hands around my cup. Dad turns off the lantern and we stay quiet, hoping that some of the little animals will come back while we're still here. We hope that the deer will come back, but it doesn't.
I bet it knows that they're still there.
I think it knows that they're still there. And you know what Dad says? Dad says, it's shy. I'm shy too, Nina tells him. So maybe the deer's shy too, huh? Before we leave, she and I get to choose a Christmas carol to sing. I choose, "Oh, come, all ye faithful." You know what she chooses? Old MacDonald Had a Farm. That's not a Christmas song, silly, I tell her. But Mom says it's fine, and it's a very nice song, too. So we sing fast because there's a lot of verses, and it's getting real cold. After the last E-I-E-I-O, we gather up our things and we head for the truck. I look back once. Our tree has folded itself into the darkness, but I think I can still see it. Stars caught in its branches and the moon swinging, lopsided on top of the tree. Nina gets tired and Dad has to wrap her in the blanket and carry her. I carry her boots. Later in bed, I think about our tree, and sometimes, next day, when the aunts and the uncles and the cousins are at our house, and it's noisy and happy, I let my mind go back to Luke's forest. I think of the birds all having Christmas dinner, and the squirrels, and the possums, and the raccoons, and the skunks. See them all. There might even be a bear, because Dad says bears don't really sleep all winter. And if one's gonna wake up, it might as well wake up for Christmas dinner, right?
You know what? They're having their own Christmas party.
That's right, at the tree. See? Maybe a fox has come, stepping high on its thin, sharp paws, and they're all there together, singing their own Christmas carols on Christmas Day around our tree. See? Yay! If you were there, would you want to stay and wait until the animals came, do you think?
Yeah.
Do you think the animals would come?
Yeah.
You think they'd come even if you stayed?
No. Because they might get scared.
Right, they might get scared. Isn't that a nice way for everyone to have Christmas?
Yeah.
I love that story. How'd you like the story, Kino?
Oh, I thought it was really good. I like that they didn't cut down the tree in the forest because, you know, trees are alive and we should only cut them if we really need to.
That's right.
I like that story. And Mar, I also like this one right here. Well, this is another one of my favorite books. It's called Maybelle's Suitcase.
Oh, is that the one about the very, very old lady that lives up in a treehouse?
Huh? Gee, you know this book?
I love that book. Oh, this is a great book.
Wow. All right. Well, Mara, let's go, okay?
We'll go. Great idea. I love this book.
Here is the book.
This is it. This is Maybelle's Suitcase. So that's the one that Kino was saying. She's the old lady that lives up in the treehouse. Now, does everyone know what a treehouse is?
Yes.
What? What's a treehouse?
I know. It's a tree that has a sort of house made out of wood.
That's right. It's a tree with a house in it. And Maybelle lives up in that house with all the birds up there. She likes to live up there. And she has a little friend, a goofy bird named Binkle, who doesn't want to, he's afraid to fly south in the winter. So she helps him. Now, do you know why birds fly south in the winter?
I do.
I know.
Okay, Kino. Why?
Because it's too far to walk.
Kino. Is that why? No. All right, why? Kim, why?
Because they need to find their food, and it's the reason why they fly south, because it's warm there.
That's right. Maybelle wants Binkle to be able to go to where it's warm, and so she helps him. And so we're going to read Maybelle's Suitcase, which is by Tricia Tusa. Okay, you all ready?
Yeah.
And it's for Maybelle. Maybelle was 108 years old and had spent the last 8 years living happily among the treetops. A fascination with birds had inspired her to build her own treehouse. Maybelle made hats and sold them to a little shop in town. For the moment, she'd put aside her work and was adding the finishing touch to a special project, her entry in the town's annual hat contest. The hat was finished, and Maybelle was very, very pleased. Out on her porch, she relaxed. She heard a chorus of goodbyes. Winter was on its way, and all her neighbors were heading south. There was a knock at the door. It was young Binkle.
Maybelle? May I borrow a suitcase?
He asked.
I promised to return it in a few months.
Now, Pumpkin, why on earth do you want a suitcase? Maybelle asked.
I can't leave home without my belongings,
Binkle said. Maybelle watched Binkle fill the suitcase. In went an oak branch forked at one end, some round rocks, and a small pile of dirt. He added a few daisies and gardenias and an armful of elm leaves. Then he tucked in his nest.
I'm ready to fly south now, Maybelle,
Binkle sighed. I sure will miss you. Cheer up, Binkle. You'll be back. Besides, traveling is fun. Binkle gave Maybelle a big hug. Over and over, he tried to fly up and away, but each time he landed flat on his back. You silly bird, Maybelle said. You'd be a lot better off if you'd let go of this load. Leave it behind, Binkle said. Absolutely not. I couldn't. Well, at least come inside then and rest while I work on my project, Maybelle said.
What project?
I'm making a hat for the big contest tomorrow. But I can't find certain things I need, Maybelle said.
Like what?
Well, for one, a handsome oak branch, forked at one end. Maybelle sighed. I just don't know what I'm gonna do. Maybe I can help, said Binkle. And then away he flew. Binkle returned.
I couldn't find the branch you needed, but...
He reached into the suitcase.
Will this do?
Perfect, said Maybelle. Now, if only I could find some shiny, round rocks and some rich brown earth.
Well, I happen to have some in the suitcase, Binkle exclaimed, surprised.
Oh, Binkle, thank you, Maybelle said.
Well, is there something else I can help you with, Maybelle?
I need some daisies and gardenias.
No problem. Be back in a flash.
And if you find some elm leaves, I'd greatly appreciate them, Mabel called out.
Right-o.
Binkle returned almost immediately, his wings empty. Couldn't you find the flowers, Maybelle said?
Well, Binkle said, it seems I have just what you need in the suitcase. You can return everything to me after the contest, and then I'll be on my way, Binkle said.
Oh, Binkle, you've been such a help. Now I can begin. Binkle watched in awe while Maybelle created the hat.
When she'd finished, he cried, "Oh, bravo! A true masterpiece!" "But something's missing," Maybelle said. "May I make a suggestion?" said Binkle. Carefully, he pulled his nest out of the suitcase and he placed it on top of the hat. Inside the nest lay the shell from which Binkle was born. In silence, Maybelle and Binkle stared proudly at the sight before them. "Wow, how will I wear it?" Maybelle whispered. "Easy," said Binkle. "I got the answer right here." The next day arrived, and what a happy day it was. Maybelle did not win the contest. However, the judges invented a new prize for Maybelle, and they received the award for the most original hat. Look at that. See him holding the nest up there? Furthermore, the hat was put on permanent display at the town museum, and it was preserved and honored always. As Maybelle and Binkle headed back to the treehouse, a cool gust of wind swept by. Binkle shuddered. "I can't take this cold. Maybelle, I really must move on." "I know, and I'll miss you." "I'll miss you too, Maybelle, but I'll be back." Binkle left that afternoon. Maybelle knew that he was taking a detour to get one last proud look through the museum window. Once alone, Maybelle placed the hat she'd originally made for the contest on her head. "Maybe next year," she said, softly.
I love
a nice story? Now, why do you think, since Maybelle had already made a hat for the contest, how come you think she made another hat? Why?
Because she didn't think that one was that good.
Maybe. But could it be because Binkle had all that stuff in the suitcase and she wanted to help her friend?
Yeah, I think she wanted to help Binkle.
You do?
Yeah, because he couldn't fly because the suitcase was so heavy.
What do you think was more important to Maybelle? Winning that contest or helping her friend?
Helping her friend.
Yeah.
I think so, huh?
I agree.
See, because everybody won, didn't they?
Oh, Allie, thank you so much for coming to our story time.
Thank you. I can't tell you how much fun this was. I will read any time to people who love to hear stories like you guys do.
Thank you for coming, and you will stay with us then?
I'd love to stay with you.
Because my very special friend Vicky is going to read another story for us.
Oh, great.
She's going to read Ruby the Copycat.
Vicky? Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right.
As Mara said, the story is called Ruby the Copycat. You knew it. It's by Peggy Brathman, and I happen to know that Peggy also illustrated this book. That means she drew all these wonderful pictures. The story is about Ruby, and Ruby's a girl who has just moved to a new town. So she is going to a brand new school. So we're going to find out what Ruby does on her first few days at school.
Great.
Here's our classroom. Monday was Ruby's first day in Miss Hart's class. Class, this is Ruby, announced Miss Hart. Ruby, you may take the empty seat behind Angela. Angela is the girl with the pretty red bow in her hair. Angela smiled at Ruby, and Ruby smiled at Angela's bow and tiptoed to her seat. I hope everyone had a pleasant weekend, said Miss Hart. Does anyone have something to share? I was the flower girl at my sister's wedding, said Angela. How exciting, said Miss Hart. Ruby raised her hand halfway. I was the flower girl at my sister's wedding, too. What a coincidence, said Miss Hart. Angela turned and smiled at Ruby, and Ruby smiled at the top of Angela's head. Class, please take out your reading books, said Miss Hart. At lunchtime, Ruby hopped all the way home on one foot. And when Ruby came back to school, she was wearing a red bow in her hair. She slid into her seat behind Angela. I like your bow, whispered Angela.
I like yours too,
whispered Ruby. Class, please take out your math books, said Miss Hart. On Tuesday morning, second day of school, Angela wore a sweater with daisies on it. At lunchtime, Ruby hopped home sideways. And when Ruby came back to school, she was wearing a sweater with daisies on it. I like your sweater, whispered Angela.
I like yours too,
whispered Ruby. On Wednesday, Angela wore a hand-painted t-shirt with matching sneakers. And after lunch, Ruby hopped back to school wearing, what? A hand-painted t-shirt with matching sneakers. Why are you sitting like that? Whispered Angela.
Wet paint,
said Ruby. On Thursday morning, during sharing time, Angela modeled the flower girl dress she wore in her sister's wedding. And Ruby modeled her flower girl dress too, right after lunch. Angela didn't whisper anything. By coincidence, on Friday, both girls wore red and lavender striped dresses. At lunchtime, Angela raced home. When Angela came back to school, she was wearing black. On Friday afternoon, Miss Hart asked everyone to write a short poem. Who would like to read first? Asked Miss Hart. Angela raised her hand and stood by her desk and read. I had a cat I could not see because it stayed in back of me. It was a very loyal pet. It's sad we never really met. That was very good, said Miss Hart. Now, who's next? She looked around the room. Ruby? Ruby stood and recited slowly. I had a nice pet, who I never met because it stayed behind me. And I'm sure it was a cat, too. Aww. And Ruby smiled at the back of Angela's head. Someone whispered, and Ruby sat down. What a coincidence, murmured Miss Hart. Angela scribbled something on a piece of paper. She passed it to Ruby. The note said, You copied me. I am telling Miss Hart. P.S. I hate your hair that way. Ruby buried her chin in the collar of her blouse, and a big tear rolled down her nose and plopped onto the note. When the bell rang, Miss Hart sent everyone home except Ruby. Miss Hart closed the door of the schoolroom and sat on Ruby's desk. Ruby, dear, said Miss Hart, you don't have to copy everything Angela does. You can be anything you want to be, but be Ruby first. I like Ruby. Miss Hart smiled at Ruby, and Ruby smiled at Miss Hart's beautiful, polished fingernails. Have a nice weekend, said Miss Hart. Have a nice weekend, said Ruby. On Monday morning, Miss Hart said, I hope everyone had a pleasant weekend. I did. I went to the opera. She looked around the room. Does anyone have something to share? Ruby, and glued to every finger was a pink plastic fingernail. I went to the opera too, said Ruby. She did not, whispered Angela. Miss Hart folded her hands and looked very serious. Ruby, dear, said Miss Hart, did you do anything else this weekend? Ruby peeled off a fingernail. I hopped, said Ruby. Oh, the class giggled. Ruby's ears turned red. But I did. I hopped around the picnic table 10 times. Ruby looked around the room. Look, watch. Ruby sprang from her desk. She hopped forward, she hopped back, she hopped sideways. With both eyes shut, the class cheered. And they clapped to the beat of Ruby's feet. Ruby was the best hopper they had ever seen. So Miss Hart turned on the tape player and said, "Follow the leader. Do the Ruby hop." And so, Ruby led the class around the room, and everyone copied her. At noon, Ruby and Angela hopped home for lunch.
Oh, that was great. Thanks, Vicki.
Thank you. Well, can anybody tell me why did Ruby copy Angela all the time?
I know.
Why?
Because she thought it would be embarrassing to be herself.
To be yourself. Yeah. That's right. Sometimes we don't realize that we have very special talents of our own. Does anybody here have a special talent they'd like to share with me?
I'm good with rollerblades. In fact, I'm more than good. I'm great with rollerblades.
Well, I'm really good at loving stories.
Oh, right. I forgot that. I'm good at loving stories, too.
Copycat.
Oh, I am so happy having my friends over to share stories with one another. Thank you, Vicki.
Thank you, Mara.
I love this.
I'll do it anytime.
And now, since it's almost the end of this story time, we should find out what other favorite books Kino brought so our friends at home can read them.
Oh, right.
Hey.
I also brought another book by Eve Bunting, the woman who wrote Night Tree. It's over there. This one's called Fly Away Home, and it's kind of sad, but I like it anyway.
Well, this one isn't sad. It's also about hats, but not Maybelle's hats. Just all kinds of hats. And it's called A 3-Hat Day. And it was written by Laura Geringer, and the pictures are by Arnold Lobel.
Say, kids, I have a riddle, okay?
Riddle?
Okay, here it is. What did the tie say to the hat? What did the tie say to the hat? Okay, you give up. The tie said to the hat, "You go on ahead while I hang around."
Did you get it?
See, you get it?
Very
The tie said to the hat, "You go on ahead while I hang around."
I think we got it. As a matter of fact, I think it's time to say goodbye.
Yeah.
And remember, keep a story in your heart.
Bye-bye, compadres. Bye-bye.
Today's Storytime books are Night Tree, Maybelle's Suitcase, Ruby the Copycat, Fly Away Home, and A 3-Hat Day. You can find these and other books at your local library or bookstore. Storytime has been made possible by a gift from Helen and Peter Bing, so that families everywhere can share the joy of reading with their children.